Hey MD, welcome to another edition of the Ronline Report. Joining me today is none other than legendary, and I don't use that term very often when it comes to people on the media side of the sport, legendary writer Peter McGough. He is the senior editor of MD, was the editor of Flex magazine for many years. He's been in the business longer than a lot of you watching this have been alive, I'm sure of that. So Peter, thank you first of all for joining us.
It's a pleasure, Ron, for us to work together these last 5 years, but we've not really worked together directly like this, so I'm really looking forward to this interview. Cool. You're turning the tables on me.
Yeah, well, it's about time. I don't know if you can see the shirt, just wore this in your honor. Okay.
Oh, wow. Why didn't I notice that?
Yeah, I think everybody wears Great Britain shirts all the time. I'm sure I'm going to want to interview more than once because your career it's too long to get...
Calm that down a little bit, Ron. You know, I feel like you're Cedric McMillan and I'm Arnold being talking about Conan the Barbarian.
That's true. So I'm very curious. I want to start at the very beginning. I want to know how you got interested in weight training and bodybuilding in the first place. You
know, I look back and the first time I ever went to the gym was 1969. But as a 11, 12-year-old, sort of 1960, 61, I was a very good artist. Yeah. I used to get the Superman comics, and I used to do my own Superman, but he was always bigger and rounder. I'd build the muscles up. I even put cross striations on his thighs, and I don't remember if they were about that. So somewhere in my head, I had this physical thing.
Wow.
As a kid, I used to love to play soccer and cricket, got into track and field, and I had a very good friend, John. He's a couple of years older than me. He was into powerlifting, but he had a really good build. He wasn't bulky like that. And also arm wrestling and all the strength things you could do. Yeah. And he says, come to the gym, you'll get stronger, get more stamina for soccer. I said, no, you know, the thing was you got muscle bound. You know?
Yeah.
Anyway, I finally agreed to go. And in preparation, because I thought I'm going to walk into this gym with all these big guys, you know, I did some workouts in my bedroom with paint cans. You know, I do triceps extensions, side laterals, you know, squats. Yeah. You know, I threw in press ups and I was like the MacGyver of bodybuilding. I put it all together, you know. Yeah. So we went in, I always remember it, Saturday afternoon in July. It was pretty hot. This gym in Nottingham was a town of about 600,000 people. Only 2 gyms in town. Wow. 2 broken down basement. This wasn't a basement, it was above an electrician shop. But the health wasn't a trend then or a fashion. Nobody trained with weights apart from, you know, bodybuilders, power lifters, Olympic lifters, and serial killers in weighting. You know, that's what the public used to think. You were an oddball. Yeah. Anyway, I went to the gym. The guys in there couldn't have been nicer. They looked at. But John was one of these guys that I think every gym has. Before the term was come up, guru, he was the guy, he read extensively, he studied, he knew everything about physiology, training. From day one, I was taught correct form, hand spacing, everything. I didn't waste any time. But at the moment that comes home to me is, I'm in the gym, I'm on the power rack, doing seated press behind neck, and on the radio, Born to be Wild came blaring out. And I thought, whoa, I'm a rebel, you know, I belong. And he put me through a 40-minute routine, you know, maybe 3 sets or so on different exercises. So as you've done that, so I got plenty left, I'll train with you. He said, no, you've done enough. But I did train with him, not the weights or the sets, but I trained a bit more. He says, you're going to be sorry. I said, no, I feel great. We went out that Saturday night. I had a 3-piece suit on, I always remember. And I was so pumped, I thought the buttons on the waistcoat were going to come off like a cartoon. Anyway, the next morning I woke up and I couldn't straighten my arms.
Wow.
And I couldn't put my shirt on until Thursday on my own. And that was another lesson. You know, it never happened again to that extent. That was my first workout. Yeah.
So you said there was Nottingham, a gym. It was a town of over 500,000 people, and there were only 2 gyms.
Yeah.
You know, did people when you started training regularly, did people that you know sort of look at you funny or ask you why you were bothering to do this oddball activity?
You say oddball. You see, the thing is, my recollection, not recollection, but the truth is, the Ben Stiller film, was it called Dodgeball, with the two gyms?
Yes. Yes.
Where you had the oddballs and then the Steel Fraternity.
It was Globo Gym and Average Joe's Gym, actually.
The one with the oddballs in, they were more indicative of the guys I was training with. Because like I said, you know, there was bodybuilders who were training for competition, but other guys who were doing whatever they're going to do.
Yeah.
There was a guy called Jimmy James, or was it Johnny Johnson? It was something like that.
Yeah.
All he ever did was deadlifts. He'd come in and deadlift for 2 hours. He never did anything else.
Wow. So
if he's still doing it, he can probably tie his shoelaces without bending down now. It was, you know, there's other guys in there. There was one called, I wrote about this recently, Klucko. He was of Polish origin. All he ever trained was chest and biceps, not even triceps. No legs. He was very tall, 6'1", wore tight clothes, and so he was like a rooster with this great big chest and these skinny legs.
Yeah.
And because his diet was just about all like 18 eggs a day or something like that.
Yeah.
And his name was, I can't remember what his name was, but it was a play on his name. Klucko, we called him, because he looked like a rooster and he was doing the eggs. So they were great times, you know, they were great guys, and the bodybuilders in there who were competing, you know, they couldn't have been nicer. You know, there's got guys in the Mr. Universe. The Gladstone Hibbert was this monster that was in there.
Wow.
And I'm going to use the phrase, I'm going to use it anyway. I sort of fell in love with bodybuilding and bodybuilders.
Yeah.
The discipline, the drive, you know, the way they were sculpting the bodies. I never had illusions about competing as a bodybuilder myself, but I went to see them in the contests. You know, it was great. It was an innocent time compared to today. You know, there wasn't even female bodybuilding. It was just male bodybuilders. They used to have a Miss Bikini class, but it was a beauty contest. You know, it wasn't, you didn't get them to say what I do for arms or whatever, you know. So it was an innocent time, and, you know, the drug side of it wasn't so rampant or advanced, you know. Obviously these guys were competing with doing it, but usually it was Dianabol and Anavar, and that was about it, you know, or whatever else, you know, Primabol. But there wasn't this, nobody used to talk about drugs really, not that they were hiding it. They talk about training. Why don't you try this for forearms? Nobody trains forearms anymore, but never mind. Yeah. Today, I'll be sitting in a restaurant at the Arnold Classic or something, and even bodybuilders I don't know, who are amateurs there to watch, they'll be talking about drug regimes.
Yeah.
I know I'm jumping ahead, but in the 90s, late 80s, when I used to have the European tour, I used to go on with all the pros around all the countries.
Yeah.
And you bonded, you know, you're together in the locker room, you're at airports, you're waiting for this, you know, you're in the hotels with them. And they used to talk about stuff, but it was always about, hey, Charlie, what Charlie Claremont, you know. Not that he did anything, but what did you do for the peak in your body? They did talk about training. There was, or they talk about dieting to get ready for a contest, but not, have you tried this from Europe or whatever? So I know I'm dodging the book, but it was a more innocent time, you know. But then I was innocent, you know. I was 20 then,
right?
1969.
Now, one account you wrote about a while back, but I'd like you to talk a little bit about it because I thought it was really cool. Was you were at, I believe you were at the first NABBA University Arnold Schwarzenegger competed in? Is that right?
No, his was 1960. I didn't see him until 1969 doing the universe.
No, Arnold. I believe you saw Arnold when he was still an amateur, when he was like 20 years old, didn't you? Competing?
Yeah, 69. He was still, was he? No, he was an amateur. He was that was the pro universe. But he was only 20. He was 22 then. I was 20. Yeah.
Did you, you know, did you already have an eye for physiques? Did you know that this was somebody who was going to be a mega star?
Well, he'd been in the magazines for a couple of years, so I did see those. He was, if you look at his progression, when he came in the 90s, he was just raw, you know, he was just this massive guy that nobody had ever seen arms like that before. Then he started to sculpt, so by 69 and certainly 70, he was a class act. You knew he was going to go to the top. You know, Sergio Oliva was reigning at the time. And he was one of my favourite bodybuilders, you know, in the way he looked and everything. But yeah, I mean, but there was no indication or thought that this guy is going to go on to be a Hollywood superstar and governor of California. He was more arrogant in those days than he is now. He's cooled down a lot. He's cooled down in the last 20 years, you know. But that happens to all of us, I think.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
What was the biggest difference in contests, attending a contest? What were they like compared to a contest today?
Well, you've got to realise, we used to go out to the universe every year. The bus would take us down and be like 50, 60 bodybuilders. It was our big day out. You've got to remember, there was no such thing as videos or obviously iPhones. And you never saw these guys move. You saw them in the magazine, but you never saw them move unless you went to see them compete.
Yeah.
So to me, it was like watching living statues coming together. There's Frank Zane, you know. There's Ken Waller, there's Christine, whoever it was, you know. Here's Sergio, my God. I shot back in my seat the first time I saw Sergio. I'd seen all the shots, but I wasn't ready for the living flesh in front of me.
Yeah.
But the big difference was, it was almost a celebration of us paying homage to our heroes and inspirations. We didn't sit there going, oh, his right delta is out of balance with his left delta. It was... And even the competitors, obviously, they wanted to win.
Yeah.
But they weren't as intense. Well, they were intense, but there wasn't the rivalry and you know, you've been backstage. Some guys don't talk to each other. A lot of guys are okay, but these guys were all mixing together. Remember, even the Pro Universe, I don't know what the prize was. It was maybe something like a few $100.
Yeah.
You couldn't justify being a pro bodybuilder in those days. You had to find something else.
Right.
So these guys were really driven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I noticed when I look at the contest histories of a lot of those guys that the careers were very, very brief. A lot of them only competed for a few years and then they were all done. And I think it's what you said. There was no way to make a living in the sport for most of them, right?
Yeah, they had to get out and earn a living. You know, Arnold and Franco took up the bricklaying business. One of the guys that I really think would have become a superstar was Jim Hayslop. He won the Mr. America in the mid-'60s, late '60s.
Yeah.
And wow, it was like Bob Paris, that sort of physique, you know, totally balanced. He retired at 27 because he had a really professional career, I don't recall. But, you know, he could have been really... He could have given Arnold some problems down the line if he'd have developed. Yeah.
No, so I remember seeing a picture of him, and it's exactly what I thought.
Yeah.
He reminded me a lot of a Bob Paris, but this was, you know, a good 25 years before Bob Paris, probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
At that time, Peter, in the late 60s, early 70s, did you ever see yourself working in any capacity in industry, or was that something that never entered into your mind?
Well, when I was at school, I had a certain ability with writing. I was told this by an English language teacher who came in and mentored me an awful lot and spotted, you know, that I could put a few words together. So the idea when I was at school, when I did, we call them the General Certificate of Education, you take it in multiple subjects. I looked like I was going to get 5, and they'd worked out that they'd get me as an intern on the local paper. So I wanted to be a journalist.
Yeah.
But I took the exams in 1965. I didn't study. I've never had to study. I've had this photographic memory.
Yeah.
I was into Bob Dylan, had a reefer jacket and a fireman cap, you know, and looked cool. Yeah. That was my life. I was just living the 60s, thinking I'll get through this. I only got 3 GCEs, and I didn't even get English language. So they couldn't do that. They said, come back next year, stay on another year at school and we'll do it. But I started to work, earned a paycheck, and that was the end of that. So writing had always been my ambition, but even at that time in the gym at 69, I wasn't thinking, I wonder if I could write about this. It sort of faded away because real life came on, you know. Yeah. I got married, had children, so, you know.
So when did you actually get into bodybuilding journalism?
When my first marriage broke up, it was like a crossroads for me. How old was I? 34, 35. And I learned a lot from the marriage. We lost a child, and that often brings you together or does the opposite. And it wasn't losing a child, it just sort of brought us home to it, and we were both sort of unhappy that we knew better to part than live this broken home or whatever it was. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then that profoundly got me, I'm going to do what I want to do. I want to write. So I did start writing some stuff for the local paper. And they took on different subjects, nothing to do with bodybuilding. Yeah. And it always amazes me that I was into bodybuilding, I was training, it was bodybuilding magazine, and I never thought, I still don't know why I didn't think, why don't you contact the bodybuilding magazine? Yeah. So what I did, I went to the 1983 Mr. Olympia, which was staged in London, won by Chris Dickerson. Yeah. I sent my...
82.
Oh, 82, sorry, you're right. I sent my resume to Dave Williams, who was the publisher of Bodybuilding Monthly, which was the biggest magazine in England at the time. It was 3 or 4 magazines. Yeah. He called me and said, come up and see me. His office was in Dewsbury in Yorkshire. So I got up there, walked in and sat down. He said, how would you like to be editor-in-chief of this magazine? I looked and thought, I had no experience in magazine production. I knew nothing about typesetting. It wasn't computers in them days. I knew nothing about the printing process of the prep. And I was thinking, you could turn this down and regret it for the rest of your life. Or you could accept it and totally screw up, but you knew it wasn't for you. Yeah. Well, I hit the ground running, and that was it. I picked everything up, and that was me basically from then on in, been working for bodybuilding magazines.
Now, you had your own publication for quite some time, Pumping Press.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Well, Dave Williams passed away many years ago, so I don't want to be too critical of somebody who's not here, but he was very bad in paying, and at one point he owed me for 3 months, and I had to meet him. It was like a Brandenburg Gate meeting, you know. I had the magazine, if you have the money. I said, I want check, I want cash, you know. Yeah. So we did that, and then he brought in this art director, a lady, who was a brilliant art director, and we used to do the magazine basically on our own. One morning, I got there. I used to go up there at the end of the month to check everything. She met me and said, the building was burnt down. I thought she was joking, but it had. So the issue we'd prepared had gone. There was nothing on computers. There's nothing saved. You know, it was all... Anyway, so we did that. We got that issue out for him. We had to rewrite stuff and do everything. He took no part in it. And we put it together in her cottage. And was thought, you know, we just did this in your cottage. We're not appreciated here. We're often whatever. We could do this. Yeah. So we brought out our own magazine. Here's I don't know if you can see that.
Muscle and Company?
Yeah, Muscle and Co.
Muscle and Co. Huh.
Yeah. And you know, this is a 85 issue with Tom Platz on the cover.
Nice.
Interesting story behind that, but yeah, so that's how Muscle and Co came about.
Huh. So did you already have, you know, plenty of contacts with the athletes, photographers, and things like that? Or
yeah, we have our own photographer, Jeff Collins, who's still today a close friend. I look back sometimes at the Peter McGough that got into bodybuilding. I thought, wow, you know, he was a hustler. You know, he got to know everybody quickly. Yeah. He got to interview people. You know, in those days, you used to get guest stars coming to shows, and there was no internet or email, so you weren't sure. There was 3 or 4 magazines fighting to get to these guys first and get an interview, maybe a photo shoot. You know? Yeah. And I just had this tremendous luck of always being first. It was like you're waiting for Barry DeMay at a London. I wonder if he's arrived. So I walked there and get out of the cab. I had Barry. I did the same with Lee Haley the first time I went. Actually, I look back and think, how the hell did I do this? I found out what hotel he was in. I found out what room he was in. I took Jeff Collins with me, knocked on the door. There's Lee Haley. This is 1984. Yeah. I'd only seen him at the 83 Olympia. You know, I hadn't talked to him or anything. He didn't know who I was. He was eating. So and he graciously said, yeah, come on. So we went in, and he was massive, you know, for that time. And I said to Jeff, if we get any, take some shots of him, candid of talking and whatever he's doing. Anyway, he agreed to do a full-blown interview later in the day and do a gym shoot with us, you know, which was terrific. Left it, I said, Jeff, why didn't you take him? He says, he's so fucking big. You know, he was just dumbfounded at the size and the shape of it. Because he used to wear this jumper, like a knitted jumper all the time.
Yeah.
That really, you know, most bodybuilders know what they look best in.
Of course.
And if they look good in something, they'll go and buy 6 of them.
Yeah. One for every color. So, you know, you sort of had a jump on the whole, you know, the internet has this big advantage over print magazines because it's instant, but you actually sort of were a foreshadow of that with the pumping press publication you had was done, you did it on newsprint, I believe.
Yeah.
You were able to get contest pictures and results shipped out to everybody, I would say, what, a good month and a half before the other magazines?
Well, yeah, it would be 7 to 10 days. The contest was on a Saturday. It'd either be out the following weekend or the Tuesday, you know. And I know it's difficult for younger guys to think there was no internet. You never knew anything that was going on. What happened was, I said there was like 4 main magazines in England that did reasonably well. Yeah. Flex and Muscle Mag were imported. They were already 2 months behind. When they came to England, they were like 4 months behind, and it was American advertising, and very expensive because it was imported. Yeah. But then Flex started a UK operation where they'd use this stuff from America but have English adverts. It'd come out a lot sooner. And I kept on telling publishers we're working for, we can't take Flex and Muscle Mag on. We can't get 8-page spreads of Bob Paris and stuff like that. But we can maximize on what they don't do well, which is get contest results, gossip out sooner than anybody. And newsprint is so much cheaper, you know, to do. But no publishers would take me up on it. I ended up working for Health and Strength, Alex McKenna, who he was a riot. Together it was like, I'm going to say Laurel and Hardy, but maybe not. So his magazine went bust because the distributor went bust. He came up to Nottingham, got off the train to see me. He says, I can't pay you for blah, blah, blah. Distributor went bust. You can punch me now. I said, no, let's go and have something to eat and talk about it. You know, so that was, then I decided I want to do this. We'll do it on our own. So Anne, we went to see the bank, we got the money together, and then at the last minute, the bank said, I can't remember the figure, but they wanted another 10 grand and we just couldn't raise it. So I was like, I'm finished with bodybuilding, I'll find another job. Jeff Collins, the photographer I mentioned before, he knew what was going on. He rang me and said, how's it going? I said, no, it's finished, Jeff. You know, we can't get enough money. He says, how much do I make the check out to? I didn't know that he was quite wealthy. You know, he never had the appearance of it. And, you know, so it's all Jeff Collins' fault. I ended up over here, really. So we then had another roadblock. Excuse me, I'm going on too long, but this is maybe interesting. Yeah. WH Smith were the biggest wholesalers. And if you didn't get into them, you wouldn't survive, you know. So, not wholesalers, retailers. So they said, no, we're not taking any more body, we're not taking on any more money. We pleaded and begged. I sent him a business plan. He rang and said, come and see me. So we thought, well, is he going to say whatever? And to be honest, he sat down and he said, this is the best business plan I've ever received from anybody. You really know your business, you know. And he said, yes. So we got on the train back to London. We got into the bar, having a little celebratory drink. And every now and then the conductor would come around and say, next stop, Luton, or whatever, or make announcements. Yeah. So there's an advert in England for Del Monte products. They do pineapples and fruits and oranges. And one of the adverts was the buyer going to Spain to check the oranges in the orchard. And all the villagers were looking expectantly. And they'll go, yes. And the punchline was, the man from Del Monte says yes. So Alan grabs the microphone and says, the man from WH Smith said yes, throughout the whole train. And the conductor came down, he was screaming and shouting, he was going to throw us off. Anyway, we went on. So that was the start of it. And really pumping press. I look back at certain stages of my life and think, you think these things happen coincidentally, but there seems a certain pattern. So we got this tabloid. Here's I'm not doing this very well, am I? Here's the front cover.
Yeah.
Now, we had to get this on the shelves. How do you get a tabloid magazine on the shelf? I figured it out. Yeah. 2 front covers.
2 different covers.
And then you fold it and have another cover. So this was the Olympia thing.
Yeah.
So this was the guys at Olympia on the Saturday were in England the next weekend. We gave them all a copy on the, and they couldn't believe it. They said, how did you do it? You know, we had like a 20-page thing on the Olympia. Let me get to the, well, and these are twice the page. Oh, come on, twice the pages.
Because, yeah, I mean, the other magazines weren't going to have that for 6 or 8 weeks, right?
Yeah, and then we did the full, you know, comparisons of Haley and Dorian in the middle.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I mean, that was actually our last issue. But what happened when we started, the WF came into being. Now, I met with them. They offered me a job at their magazine, but I knew it was never going to work, you know. So I was looking for controversy. I was looking for a target. Here comes the WBF. Here I go, you know. Yeah. So I used to hammer them every month. And they used to ring up, I won't give his name, he was vice president of talent. Says, you can't write this, you can't do this. And he'd go on and I said, can you just slow down? Jonathan, his name was.
Jonathan, I remember. I knew him actually. Yeah.
I didn't quite catch all of that. I need to. And then next month, I put in what he said. Tom Platz told me a few years later, he said, when pumping press used to arrive, the building would shake, you know. Because what we did, we picked out all the top officials in the IFBB, you know, Ben, Joe Weider, Manny and Wayne Miller at the time. Yeah. Everybody that was a figure in body, and all the top bodybuilders, Lee Haney and all the rest of it, there was probably 200 people. And it cost us a lot of money, but we'd expressed a copy to them. So it built up this power that all the people in power were reading it. Yeah. And we became somehow more powerful than we were, you know. He's telling it like it is. Because I'll tell you this now. There was a lot of people, both in the magazines and in federations, who were looking. They didn't want to get constant. We might end up with Vince. We might stay with, you know. They were sort of playing that game. I had no chance of going to the WBF. So it built up this reputation of being honest and humorous, you know, and it was hard work because there's only 2 of us on it. I used to do all the writing, which was about 30,000 words a month, you know, different stories. Yeah. I used to sell all the advertising, and she'd do the design, and she made a decision. You know, the printers would give you 30 days, 60 days. She says, we're not taking it. We're going to pay for it before it's printed. I don't want us to ever get into the thing that we're, you know, suddenly we can't handle 2 months' payment and we'll go bust over a lot of money. If it's going to happen, it'll happen under our control. So there was many times when we had to go to the printer the next day with the finished magazine, and I'd be typing thinking, we need 2 adverts today, we need 2 adverts today. And they'd come in. And so we went on. So it was very hectic, and we used to work really long hours, and I used to work through the night towards the end, you know. Wow. And Anne used to pay me £40 a week. She was the money. Yeah. She gave me it on the Friday, and she said, okay, I've got a supermarket, I need some money. I said, how much do you need? Well, maybe £40 would cover it. So it was just like a stupid little ritual. Yeah.
Oh, boy. Well, I've saved the best story of the early days for last. You ended up being basically the historian, the documentarian for Dorian Yates. Yeah. So can you talk about how you were there at the very first contest he ever competed in as a novice, 1985?
Yeah, I mean, there again, meeting Dorian, bonding with him in '85, and then following his progression and being right behind me and alerting the American press, this helped me, because it's like, well, he's talking about, you know, a guy that's obviously going to be very good. I've got a story about Dorian, maybe another time or later. But, yeah, as I say, no internet in those days, but I heard rumbling from, especially from Jeff Collins, who was lived in Birmingham. So this kid, Dorian Yates, is turning a few heads down here. I never saw a picture, you know, he didn't do that.
Yeah.
Went to Morecambe, West Coast Champions, it's a seaside town in the west of England in Lancashire. And it wasn't a show that had a pre-judging and an evening finals. Each class would run through, you know, they did the pre-judging, 2-minute gap, then come out and pose. We got caught in a massive traffic jam, got there late. The intermediates pre-judging had just finished. I got to the hall, and on the other side of the hall I saw Frank Richards, who was nearly killed in an industrial accident, but came back after 14 years to get 5th place at the Night of the Champions and qualify for the Olympics. So I went across to congratulate him. He's facing the stage. I got my back to the stage. I was talking over. I said, how long are you going to go on now? Run your back? Oh, says 2 or 3 years maybe. He didn't go on long. He says 2 or 3 years maybe. I said, well, why is that? And from the background I heard do-do-do-do-do-do-do, the opening riff to your Eurythmics.
Sweet Dreams.
Yeah. And I looked round, and there was Dorian walking out. Now, the thing that struck you was, Jesus, the shape, the development, the density, but the hardness, and also the way he walked. He was like an athlete coming up to the blocks. He was never one to come out with a big black spread, or, you know, his legs were too big. You know, he walked like an athlete. Bang, bang, bang. I thought, bloody hell, I was with Muscular then. Yeah, so he came out, he had a duffel bag over his shoulder. His wife was with him. They scuffled out going up the pier. This was a seaside thing, you know.
Yeah.
And I ran after him, Dorian, told me what was, I'd like to do an article and photo shoot with you. And he looked at me like, are you crazy? Just then, Ron Davies, a great guy who used to be president of the English Federation, great promoter, competed very highly as a bodybuilder himself, is sadly no longer with us. He came on, Dorian, I want you to come down to Birmingham. It was in Birmingham tomorrow. We're having the pose down for the World Games next week, and I'm sure you'll make it. So Dorian's like, what the hell is going on? It was like one of those Hollywood Mickey Rooney type films where, you know, suddenly the sky opens up and you can hear the celestial choir singing.
Because it was his first contest ever.
He'd done a couple of really local, non-aligned stuff, you know.
I think he did like a gym show or something.
Yeah, it was like that. It wasn't anything regional or qualifying, yeah.
But he was told at that show that you're talking about, he won the novice because he didn't even want to, he believed in taking things one step at a time, so he didn't even attempt to enter the open unlimited division. But this gentleman, is Ron David, is that what he said his name was?
Ron Davies, yeah.
Yeah, he said, I mean, I remember Dorian saying to him in Dorian's account, you're already the best heavyweight we have in Great Britain right now.
Yeah,
so,
and the kicker to that was Andrew Searle was the British champion, and he was at the back on a gold's booth. Yeah. And I sort of looked at him and thought, yeah, you know what's happening. Because, yeah, I knew then when I saw him, he's better than any British champion we've ever had overall.
Wow.
He's in a bloody novice contest, yeah.
You know, so was it, so you probably weren't very surprised to see his progression over the few years after that, right? No,
I mean, when I came back from the Olympia in '88, which was in Los Angeles, Dorian won the overall. And I'm looking and thinking, you could have been in the top 6 in this. And then he waited the 2 years. And then I did this story on it, said a very different bodybuilder. And because I got to know him and the mindset, that's where his strength is. He's real powerhouse in here, in every aspect.
Yeah.
So I sent this to Flex magazine with pictures. We'd taken a good photo shoot, good quality photographs, to sort of get some publicity before the Night of the Champions, his first pro contest in 1990. But I've done work for Flex over the years, 10 years. It asked me to do certain things that were Europe-based, you know. So I talked to the assistant editor and he said, yeah, we've seen it. The editor doesn't want anything from England. He says, you're already pushing him because he's English. I said, I've been connected to you guys for 10 years. We've had 10 British champions. I never contacted you about one of them. Right. This guy is going to make it. They didn't do it. I sent it to Muscle Mag and they did it. You know, so it was, it was, I never had any doubts that he would win the Olympia from, like, certainly from the night of the champions. I had an inkling in '88, he's going to be up there, you know, top 3 at some point. But from 1991 onwards, especially with Lee Haney departing the scene, I thought, look, this guy is going to... And the lucky thing is, we've known each other for 32 years nearly now.
Yeah.
And we bonded straight away because I wasn't hustling him, although I said I was hustling before. We had the same temperament in some ways. I'm not comparing myself with him.
Yeah.
But I was very focused on doing the best I ever could. It never was about money for me. You know, I've got to, this is the best article I can write on this guy, my abilities. And so I was very driven. And it's funny, you know, he sort of got to the top of his ladder. I got to the top of my little ladder. So it wasn't too bad for 2 English guys born 50 miles apart who didn't have a silver spoon or anything, you know.
Right on. Well, that's going to be the end of part 1 because we have a lot to talk about with the Weider years where you were running Flex magazine for how many years was it? About 10 or 12?
11 years and then 5 years doing Muscle and Fitness and Muscle and Fitness Hers at the same. So it was 3 magazines.
Wow. Okay. So there's some stories in there, I'm very, very sure.
Yeah.
So I'm going to wrap this up for part 1.
Yeah.
There's definitely going to be a part 2, so everybody relax. It's coming.
Well, we'll see what the reception is. If there's going to be part 2.
We'll see what the reception is. But Peter, I thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. And I just want to add, you know, I appreciate the chance to work with you. You're somebody I looked up to for years and years. And because you're with Weider all those years and I was with other magazines, Iron Man, Muscle Mag, and then MD, I just never thought I was going to have the opportunity. So I'm so grateful, so appreciative to have this opportunity to finally work with you and get to know you a little bit because, you know, there's not many icons in the bodybuilding journalism world, period.
Well, Ron,
you would be the one.
You're getting there with that sort of status. Thanks for the opportunity of doing this. I mean, although we never worked together for years, we were always sociable. You know, it wasn't like we ignored each other because we were different magazines.
So I would always see you at the shows and everything.
Yeah.
But, thanks to Steve for bringing you to MD and giving me this chance. So, for the Ronline Report, this has been Ron Harris with Peter McGough. Thanks for watching.